Hello. Well, this is my weekly roundup. I'm going to try and do one of these every Wednesday where I talk about the films and TV shows that I've watched that week before I forget about them all. I've been watching quite a few things this week in between working on my next book and scenes for The Outcast and various other things. But the first thing that I want to talk about is the play that I went to see the other night, last night, in fact, which had one of the Outcast creative in it, Shaz Ali. This is a play about the Grenfell fire. It's the second of two plays on the subject, and if you're not familiar with the Grenfell fire, it was a terribly tragic and foreseeable event that took place in the summer of 2016. I think it was 2016, and a tower block which housed predominantly low-income or poor families caught fire in West London, in an area sort of between Ladbroke Grove and Latimer Road, and it didn't have this fireproof cladding on the side of the building, and the fire shot up the side of the building, and some, I think it was 76 or 71 residents were killed, most of them by smoke inclination because they couldn't get out by the time the order was given to evacuate the building. A huge number of controversies surround all the things that happened. This particular part of the play really examines, it's a recreation of a public inquiry, so it's quite similar to some of the stuff that the Outcasts, well, not the Outcasts, but that I have done. I did the Victoria Climbié inquiry and the Marchioness inquiry, and you kind of recreate a stage play of a selection of scenes that it takes quite a long time to go through and edit into a stage production. Now, this is edited by Richard Norton Taylor, who has done The Colour of Justice about the murder of Stephen Lawrence. He did The Case for War about the war in Iraq, and he's done a number of other plays, including The Inquiry into Bloody Sunday, which are all of a similar veneer. It's extremely well done. You do feel like you're in the inquiry most of the time. It's pretty rare that the show takes you out of that setting. This is the cast: Shaz Ali, who's a member of the Outcast there, top left. And he supported it's an ensemble piece with Madeline Burr, Nicholas Chambers, Nigel Betts, Ron Cook, who I'm a huge fan of, Howard Crossley, Sophie DeVal, Derek Elroy, who I'm also a big fan of, Sarah Giles, I think that is, Tanvir Ghani, David Michaels, and Thomas Wheatley, who some people will know from the living daylights of James Bond films with Timothy Dalton. So most of these actors play a single role. David Michaels plays two characters which aren't that dissimilar, and he does an extremely good job of making them very different. Sophie DeVal is particularly cringeworthy as Dr. Sarah Cowell, who basically was crap at her job. It is the most politest way I can put it. And this really shines a light on the microcosm of things that went wrong in the, I mean, sort of in the background. A lot of it was to do with procedures, how the flammable material ended up on the building in the first place. And it does get quite technical at times, and you'd think that wouldn't make for a gripping stage play, but it does. And the cast do incredibly well to rock it along. It's well directed by Nicholas Kent. I do think the second half could do with a little bit of editing. It's quite rare that you see a play that's 55 minutes first half and 65 minutes second half. It's normally the other way round. Sometimes witnesses had to leave the stand because they got too upset, and this is achieved by a dip in lighting, and the title comes up short adjournment, and the actor actually leaves the set and comes back. For me, that brought everything emotionally to a halt, and I didn't think it was necessary to recreate that adjournment so specifically. We are watching a dramatic piece of theatre. We know it's edited. Nigel Betts, who plays Brian Martin, for example, was on the stand for over 7 days, and he's on the stand for 10, 15 minutes here. Extremely good performance by Nigel Betts as Brian Martin, who really plays his emotional responsibility that he feels at the end of his section extremely well. I thought all the cast were very good. No weak links for me. It's only Shaz's second play, and he's only been acting not even for a year yet. So for him to have done 2 stage plays already about 2 quite heavy topics, full credit to him. So the Grenfell system failure play is on now. I mean, the cast are on stage literally while I'm talking about it now. So you've got it on the Playground Theatre until the 25th of February. So that's just a few more days. Then it's at the Tabernacle from the 27th of February until the 12th of March. And then the Marylebone Theatre from the 14th of March until the 26th. I think I'm going again on the 21st, and I'm going to try and see it at the Tabernacle as well. And I'll put that link in the chat so that anybody watching this later can see it, because I know we ain't got many people on here now. But those people who are watching, thank you very much for tuning in and not making me feel like I'm completely alone. So, yeah, there you go. I'll just chuck that in there. I mean, look, this is it's not a difficult, it's not an easy watch. And the cast took the decision, or rather the director took the decision for the cast not to come out and do a bow at the end of the play, and for the sort of weight of the message to be sort of left on stage with the names of the deceased. Now, I wasn't sure about that. And I talked to some of the cast about it afterwards and what their thinking was and around it. And it's clear this decision came from the director. And I kind of got where he's coming from. And I mean, it is weird. You're doing a play literally within a stone's throw of Grenfell, of where these people died. So I get the need to underscore the seriousness of this message. But at the same time, this is theatre. It's not the real inquiry. It's as good as you're going to get if you weren't there. But it is theatre. It's a piece of dramatic theatre. Excuse my notifications. Let me just deactivate that so it doesn't do that again. There we go. Yeah, it is a piece of theatre. I'm not sure that was the right decision. I think both the audience and the actors need that moment of applause at the end, not only because the actors deserve it and they deserve to get it. And I think it's wrong for people to perform in a play and not receive the applause that they deserve at the end. That's always been a theatre tradition of time and memoriam. But I also think it's quite important mentally to be able to snap out of it and know that we have just watched a piece of theatre. I don't think that undermines the serious message of the piece, not at all. I would have come away with the same level of concern for what happened, and I would have retained all the same information, the same message, and the same emotional impact. It would not have been lessened for me. I personally now I've had time to reflect on it. Whilst I understand the decision, I personally think that the cast should come out and take a bow. That's just my thinking, but that's what I think. There's a number of panel discussions taking place about the play, so you can see them here. Some of them hosted by Grenfell United, which I believe is made up of the residents and Justice for Grenfell and so on. And so that's going to be heartfelt and very emotional. So I do recommend Grenfell System Failure. You've only got until just before the end of March to go and see it. So do go and see it. Let's get back to films now. So I've seen about 3 or 4 films this week. I'm going to focus on just a couple. I saw Knock at the Cabin, which has a friend of mine in it, the very talented Nicky Amuka Bird. Now, Knock at the Cabin was an interesting play. I mean, it felt like I was watching a play. I've got to be honest. It's pretty much all set in one location. I don't want to get into spoilers, but the premise of Knock at the Cabin is that there's a couple with a kid who've chosen a very idyllic location to get away for a week. These 4 strangers turn up with a number of unusual looking devices in their hands, and they basically say, look, if one of you doesn't sacrifice yourself, the various apocalypses that have been predicted in the Bible are going to come one by one and destroy the world, and we have to sacrifice ourselves instead. And every time we do that, one of the apocalypses will appear. Michael Knight Shyamalan there's always like a core strong idea in all of his films. There's 2 of his films that I've really liked, and I'm not so keen on the rest of his work, because I often find that if you can predict what the twist is, which for me as a writer is perhaps easier than your disconcerting moviegoer, that kind of ruins it for you when you're about halfway through the movie. With this particular film, I just didn't really care for the characters that much. I found the kind of the family bubble that had been created, which is an LGBT couple adopting an Asian child. It just felt very, I think our nuclear family should look like this for this movie, and I didn't have a problem with it. And actually, I really like Jonathan Goff. I'm a huge fan of his. It just all felt a bit, I don't know. It just felt a bit naff. That sounds terrible, but just felt a bit naff. Nicky Amuka Bird is very good in it. So is Dave Bautista. And then you have an almost unrecognizable, but I did spot it was him. You have an almost unrecognizable Rupert Grint in there, in a supporting role. So that was interesting. Look, if you like your Night Shyamalan movies, then I wouldn't say don't go and see it or don't rent it. But for me, it was a 5 out of 10. It's just not. I fell asleep twice when I was watching it. I don't know if that's just because I'm tired. But yeah, I fell asleep twice. See, look, I even had a banner for this and I forgot to put it up. There we go. So yeah, I do recommend Grenfell System Failure. Before we get on to 2 other, let's move on to TV in a sec. But I do have one other film I want to talk about, which I didn't create a banner for. Let's do that now quickly. And that is Argentina, 1985. Now, this is a movie that's been nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars. It's set in Argentina, 1985, unsurprisingly. And it covers the period of time after the junta has fallen, after the disastrous Falkland invasion. It's really, I guess, an attempt by the civilian legal system to try and hold accountable those in the junta who were responsible for the disappeared, the mass political murderings. Now, this is a subject that I was very interested in because I've always heard a lot about this, but I've never quite had a grasp of it. And I was never quite sure exactly how many people were murdered and why these people disappeared, what was the political motivation behind it. And I got a lot of that from this movie. I am interested in history. I'm particularly interested in this period of history because it was my childhood. I was a teenager when these events were, very young teenager when these events were taking place. I was, of course, also alive when the Falklands happened, and we were very much motivated to be anti-Argentinian. All of the press, everybody in my school was all going around bash the Argies and all this kind of thing, which was a complete nonsense because the Argentinian people didn't really want this war. Most people had never heard of the Malvinas and / Falkland Islands, and I think most people would have been quite happy just to have left it as it was, and for both Argentinians and British people to come and go as they please. But it all became a chess piece in a rather difficult game, and a lot of people were killed unnecessarily in the political shenanigans of the junta. All kinds of atrocities were carried out, and this is a film about the lawyers trying to bring those people to justice. So it's a legal drama / political thriller, extremely well realized visually. The production design on this film is absolutely fantastic. You really do feel like you're in the 80s. Everybody smokes. You've got those suits. You've got the drinks. It's got the colors. It's got the palette. It's got the tone. It looks fantastic. I did have to watch it in 2 halves. I put it on quite late, and I was very into it, but I was very knackered. So I thought, let me pause this now, and I'm going to pick the rest up tomorrow. And actually ended up watching the rest a week later, which is why I didn't talk about this last week. But it's a really good movie that I highly recommend. If you've even got the vaguest interest in history, or you lived through that period, and you like foreign films, you don't mind your subtitles. I mean, you can watch it with dubbing if you want, God forbid. It's available now on I think it's Amazon. Just a really good film. I do recommend it. Fantastic movie. So don't recommend The Knock at the Cabin in the Woods. I'm going to delete that title now. But I do recommend Argentina 1985. The 2 lead actors, and I believe that's them with their names above them on the poster, Ricardo Darín and Peter Lanzani, both fantastic actors, really good. They've got great chemistry, and because they're so different, I just I really like them. So let's move on to television. Of course, everybody's watching The Last of Us. Some people love it, some people don't. I personally think it's an extremely well-made show. Going to talk about episode 6. So episode 5, which I talked about on the first one of these roundups, I thought was probably the best episode so far. It had incredible tension, incredible action stuff. It was just really good, It was just really, really fantastic. Now, I have to just state again, for those people that aren't sure, I have not played The Last of Us video game. I said that last week. I haven't played it. And hey, Mrs. Martin's music, thanks for popping in. If you've got any comments, stick them below. Did you like any of these? So I'm really into The Last of Us. I'll watch each episode as it comes out. I really like the production design. I like the world, the creation of the world. I like the different characters. I love Bella Ramsey as an actress. I do think she's a little bit miscast in this role. And I perhaps would have liked to have seen her in this role when she'd had 2 or 3 more parts under her belt. But she's great. She's great in the part. She's good. Pedro Pascal is great as the lead. They have a good back and forth. The two of them. I think that's very important. That they have that back and forth. And that was key to the game. Clearly, it's not something that I can compare. But you know, it's a good show. Good show. Really well done. And I'm enjoying it. Very much. In terms of episode 6, not wanting to get into spoilers, it's a bit of a calmer episode after the last one. Some fairly big decisions are made. Some key characters are in that episode. I still got the wrong banner down. Look, see, this is why I need to do this with somebody else. Let me do that. There we go. So, yeah, it's a good episode. That still's not from episode 6. I don't know if they've got one from episode 6 on here in particular, but no, these are all from fairly early on. I think these are from the pilot. Now this actress, Nico Parker, who played Pascal's daughter. Now you see, I didn't know what was going to happen to her character because again, I hadn't played the game. God, she was good. She was such a good actress. She's going to have a really good career ahead of her. So if you haven't watched Last of Us, which is unlikely, it's got a 9.2 on IMDb. I do recommend it. Episode 6 for me was another winner. It's engrossing. I'm invested. I'm interested. Bring it on. Let's see some more of it. So I'm going to just talk about my favorite TV show now. This is my favorite TV show of last year because it started last year. I think it started last year. I think the pilot was on between Boxing Day and the New Year. And I guess we can we show the trailer with the sound down? I think I'm allowed to do that, right? I think I'm allowed to do that. So I've lost it now. What happened there? I really need to get my technicals sorted out on this. Right, so let me change the banner here before I forget to do that. So I'm talking about 1923. Now this is the second of the prequels to Yellowstone. I'm a big fan of Yellowstone, and 1923 is just a superbly made show. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm on IMDb here. But I think that's okay. I think I'm okay to just show the trailer as long as the sound's turned down. So, I mean, you've got amazing production value on this show. It's a big budget, huge set pieces, incredible production design. You're really pushing the boat out, literally, as you saw in that clip just then. You've got a fantastic cast, a couple of new faces in there, but led by Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford, old hands. Bit of a farmhand joke there. And it's really set at that time in the early 20s where the time of the Old West was really shrinking, was really coming to the end. And I mean, this is set in Montana, which is, the American Northwest. So Montana would have been one of the last places to get electricity, for the towns to get the modern conveniences, fridge, freezers, and so on. And I love the way that you see all of that stuff coming in. And there's a great scene, I think it's in the first or second episode, where the cowboys ride into town, and they can't believe how much town has changed and how many motor cars are in the town now. And, everybody's got a car. Not everybody, but, so I've just watched, I think it's episode 6, I want to say. There's a subplot about one of the sons being away he was in the First World War, and he's suffering from PTSD, and he's kind of working through his problems hunting in Africa, and sort of plans on coming back, you know, once he's got through that. This is one of the Dutton boys, but of course, while he's away, everything's going to shit. There's a bit of a range war with some local Irish sheep herders. Various people have been killed who you thought were actually going to be, you know, bigger characters that were going to be in it for a longer period of time. And you had James Badge Dale in there, who some of you may remember from Band of Brothers Pacific. He's been in quite a lot of other things. And it was kind of set up that he was going to be a main character, and then boom, suddenly he's gone, you know. Not going to say where, but so it's quite clever. It takes a lot of risks with the script, which I like. If you like your westerns, you're going to love this. I think it's one of the best shows on TV right now. So yeah, I mean, it's a 9 out of 10. I said different episodes I'd give a different rating to, but overall I'd give the show a 9 out of 10. Now I one of the things that was in the news recently was Harry and Meghan were gonna sue South Park. Now, I knew that because South Park is back, thank God. We all need South Park. And the second episode of the new series, I didn't care for the first episode that much, but the second episode of the new series is absolutely hilarious. And there was a big story running around that Meghan and Harry were going to sue South Park. I immediately dismissed that because I know Harry. He's got a sense. I mean, I don't know him, but the guy's got a sense of humor. That I do know. And I just knew that there was no way he was going to even entertain that for 1 second. But they are parodied as the sort of prince and princess of Canada, and the issue is the issues explored in the episode are very much around them wanting to maintain their privacy in their life, whilst also wanting to maintain an extremely high public profile. And the two are quite difficult to keep mutually exclusive, as I would love to show you from a clip, but you know, we're not allowed to do that sort of thing. But here they are, as you can see, very physically accurate representations of the characters. There's a particularly funny parody scene to the Magical Mystery Tour of the Beatles, which is hilarious, and that's a lot of fun. There's also a really good scene where Harry's not sure if Meghan's all there. Anyway, I've actually got to say I've got a lot of time for Harry. I know he's getting a lot of flack right now, and I know most people think he's a whinging rich kid. Stop moaning and all the rest of it. But yeah, you need to step back and kind of look at his journey a little bit. He has been ridden roughshod a little bit and not had a voice for a long time. I don't grudge him taking ownership of his narrative at all, and I'm pretty sure if I was in his position, I'd want to do the same thing. So, you know, I ain't walked a mile in his shoes, so I'm not going to judge him and start calling him names because I don't know the guy. I haven't walked a mile in his shoes, and but I do know some of the things he's been through, and you know, that place it works in a very strange way. So that's my weekly roundup. I was hoping to have someone on with me to banter back and forth with, but none of the usual suspects were available. So I'm going to do these every week, whether I've got someone to chat to or not. Yeah, so squeezed a lot in. I think there's some other shows that I saw that weren't probably worthy of me getting into conversations about. I am about to watch The Whale this week, which a lot of people are talking about. I was quite surprised that Mark Kermode did not care for it. I thought it'd be a film that he would be really into. I haven't seen, still haven't seen Wakanda Forever. So I still need to watch that. I mean, it's Marvel. I just can't be asked. Just can't be asked. I'll talk about the Baftas a little bit quickly before we wrap up here. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. If you're tuning in, do like and subscribe, leave a comment. So the Baftas this year. So first of all, congratulations to the winners. I thought the two films that kind of jostled, is that a word? Jostled for the sort of biggies, All Quiet on the Western Front, which I think was the winner of the day, and Banshees of Inisherin. These were two films that I thought were both really good. Banshees is a little bit nichey. I don't think it will be for everybody. It's a certain type of comedy, sort of quirky comedy about, you know, little people having little arguments about little things that are big in their village. And I think whether you find that entertaining or not will largely depend on how much you like those actors. But the actors are all amazing in Banshees of Inisherin. All Quiet on the Western Front deserved every award it got, and then some. So I think those two films rightly got the awards that they deserve to get. I had a big issue with the BAFTA thing for two reasons. Okay, one, and there's nothing whatsoever that justifies this apart from extremely poor judgment or an admin fuck up on their part. They did not have the much beloved Bernard Cribbins, actor who has been around since I was a kid, in the In Memoriam section. This is predominantly a British show. He's a British institution. How could you leave him out? I mean, I find that unforgivable. He hasn't just done television. He's been in films. He's been on stage. He's been in feature films. You know, he might not have had the big meaty roles, but he's been around. And he's also just, you know, he's another guy who's got one of the best reputations in the industry. And I was extremely surprised to see that they left him out. So I thought that was a bit of a travesty. The second thing was they did that awful thing where they sort of cut short loads of the smaller awards and just do a little summary. Also, who won tonight was so-and-so for best short film. Those people have proper grafted to get to that place to get that award and do their little speech. And it's like, okay, the only people that are going to see it are the people that are there. And who decides? So it's just the elitists, you know, the people that are up for the big gongs. Are they the only ones who have merit then? Somebody argued with me on Facebook. No one wants to watch the little people pick up their awards. That's what people are like. They're only interested in the famous people. I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. I think some of the most interesting moments of television, particularly at award shows, come from people who are unknown, who come up with hilarious speeches and funny things happen. I actually found that much as I love Richard E. Grant, and I do love him, I found all the scripted stuff with all the other presenters and everything, all of their jokes were so boring. They were really flat and boring. It didn't really work. I like Alison Hammond as well, but I'm not sure that chat stuff on the sofa was, it felt very Oscar. It didn't feel BAFTAs. And I don't understand why we constantly feel the need to emulate the Americans. So, yeah, I wasn't over impressed with it this year. Congratulations to the winners, but I wasn't over impressed with and shame on you for getting Bernard Cribbins. Terrible. So yeah, I think that's it from me. I've covered everything. So I'm going to do this again next week. I will be watching more shows. I'm going to be watching the latest season of Family Guy. I know that's on my to-do list. I think I'll probably talk a bit about Black Mafia Family, which is a show that I'm very interested in. And I'm also enjoying the show about the Wu-Tang Clan, which is like a dramatization about that. I find that really interesting because I never really knew that much about them, just their music, but just I didn't know anything about how they were created or where they came from, or I didn't really understand the makeup of the group. And so I'm finding that really interesting. I know it's a very much kind of their version of their story, but you know, so you got to take it with a pinch of salt as you do any dramatization. But I think it's extremely well done. So I'm probably going to do a whole episode about that at some point. So thanks very much for tuning in. If you are ever interested in coming on and chatting about some of your favorite stuff, I frequently have done, and I'm going to do episodes about specific things. So I want to do one on science fiction TV shows before the year 2000. So before everything got really CGI perfect. And, you know, what were the 10 best shows before then? And also when Picard season 3 is all done, definitely going to do a stream about that as well. I've seen the first episode of Picard season 3 and I liked it. Haven't seen season 2, only saw about half of season 1. And I did enjoy it. I did enjoy Star Trek Picard. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in. I should be back here again next Wednesday. I'm also hoping to be here on Saturday to do the Inner Space Fantastic Voyage chat with my good friend Lady Gravemaster, assuming she can make it. And she bless her, she did make it, but she just wasn't able to communicate with me until right up till the last minute, and I thought she was cancelling, so I moved it. So hopefully she'll be here with me this coming Saturday, and we'll talk about those 2 films and if they've aged well and whether you should track them down and watch them and all that kind of thing. Until then, thanks very much for tuning in, and don't forget to tell the people that you care about that you love them, and I'll see you again real soon. Make sure you go and see, if you're based in London, even if you're not based in London and you can get there, go and see Grenfell System Failure, because it's something you should know about and be aware of. All right, good night.